Aha! Is this working? Well, that was funny. Yeah. Hello, everybody. If you can hear me, see me, whatever. Let's see if the chat is working. Hey, Neil Martin is here. Right. Okay. So, sorry about that. I mean, I say sorry. For me, I have been broadcasting for the last 11 minutes, fiddling around with technical difficulties, and nobody has seen any of that, which is good in a way. But you've all wasted 11 minutes sending me messages saying, Paul, it's not working. Why is it not working? So, hello, everybody. Thank you very much for tuning in. I was getting a little concerned because it said there was 2 people watching, and that was me on this screen and me on the iPad. And I thought, nobody's decided to join in, which is a little bit disappointing. Anyway, people are now here. At least Neil's here. If you are in the chat, if you are watching it and you have access to the chat, then please say hello in the chat. This is the idea of this is a monthly live Q&A session where basically you can ask me whatever you want. So Paul's in here as well. Hello, Paul. And I've sent it out on Twitter. I've updated the Facebook page. Everybody seems to be saying that it's now working, which is good, and the chat is working. Oh, right, that was a little bit of a panic. I was about to pull the link, cancel it, thinking that I'd done something wrong, and I had done something wrong. For some reason, I'd set it to private, and I don't know why I'd done that, but anyway, it is working now. So let's crack on with the show. And before anybody has any questions for me, I have had a couple of questions in from people who weren't able to make it, but they sent me some questions beforehand. So just have a bit of milk. Oh, God. Right. Okay, so let's have a look. First one is from Ben Osteen. Ben wants to know what irritates me more. Now, a lot of people will know that I get irritated a lot by a lot of things. So let's have a look. He's got a good game with terrible presentation, including the rulebook. A well-produced game which has clearly had hasty or even no development, and finally a potentially good game but where the designer has not committed to one single official rule set with loads of variant rules. Right, so good question. I'm going to tackle the third one first. I'm going to tackle games that have, I'm going to stay back a little bit as well. So I'm going to tackle games that have variant rule sets first and what I think about them. I generally think they're fine, within reason. So I'm all for designers designing a game and saying, right, this is the game that we've designed. This is what we want. I'm just going to try and get the YouTube comments up on another screen so I can see them. So yeah, designing a game and saying, right, here's the rules as I've designed them. However, here's some variant rules. If you want to play with these will change the way that the game works. We've tested them. It still works fine. And the reason why we've not included these as the base rules is we felt that, or our playtesters felt some of them liked this version, some of them like that version. Now, there is a train of thought that you should, as a designer or publisher, say, right, this is the one we're going with. However, by doing that, you're alienating 50% of your audience. Well, 50% of the playtesters because they liked it better the other way. So I'm all for variants, modules, and alternative rules within a base game itself. For example, if a game is cooperative, but here's some variant rules so that you can play it competitively. If it works, then that's great. If it was just pasted on because the publisher went, oh, let's make a game that can be both competitive and cooperative, whereas one of those modes doesn't actually work, that's not good. I don't like that. So I'm all for variants. It doesn't irritate me. It doesn't annoy me as long as it's done correctly. So, for example, if the rules of a game say, oh, you've got 6 movement points on your turn, or alternatively, you could roll a die, or alternatively, you could pick a card, or alternatively, you could throw stones at the wall or whatever. If that's clearly that they just literally can't decide which one to use. So that annoys me a bit, but not much. But variant rules don't bother me as much as some people. Right. What else have we got? Let's just see if I can get the chat up on the iPad. So, in fact, I'll get the chat up on here so that I'm not looking at myself. Which is probably better. Right, let's have a look. Here we go. So, what have we got? Sounds is confusing. He's hearing 2 voices. I don't know why. Luke, the whole video will go out on YouTube. unless I'm able to edit it first. I don't really want to edit it first. Paul's saying that my video is repeating. I'm not sure why, because I only have, my laptop is here. It should be recording my voice. So, Paul had it running on 2 screens. Brilliant. And sorry, David, about the Mankini. Anyway, back to the question from Ben. So one thing that does annoy me is a game which is well produced, but clearly needed more development. However, we are in the days now where bling is important. So there's a lot of games coming out that have basically got, you know, oh, look at all these components. Oh, it's got this and it's got that. The artwork's fantastic. And I'm all for bling in games. But if the game itself is not very good, I'm not saying that would irritate me. It would put me off the game, because I play games if the game's good. The bling's nice, the theme's nice, the setting's nice, whatever. But I play a game if the game itself is good. If the game's not good, I don't care how good it looks. So I wouldn't have said that irritates me. The first one that Ben said, what was his first question? Going back to them in reverse order. Ben said, a good game with terrible presentation, including the rulebook. Yeah, because if you're a designer or a developer and you've put months, years of work into a game, and then the publisher decides to get Dave from next door to do the artwork because he was cheap, and then they rush the rulebook out at the last minute and you're reading through it and it's incomprehensible, then that would irritate me. But it irritates me because you know, I'm a gamer, and if I bought that game and I want to play that game and I think, oh, there's probably a good game in here, but this graphic design is terrible, the rulebook's terrible, and all of that lot, then that would irritate me, because it's easily fixable. Now, I say easily, it's not easy. It takes time, effort, and money. But that's it. It's not like, you know, when you're designing a game, only some people can design, you know, really, really good games. That's a really fine skill. But doing the good artwork and presentation and rulebook, there's plenty of people out there who can do that. And it's just a case of making the effort and doing it. And it does irritate me when some publishers don't go to those lengths, because I believe everybody should. There's so many games coming out this year that games should be good. Yeah. So anyway, that's that. Does anybody have any comments themselves about those 3 things? Just reading the chat here. Obviously, there'll be a 30-second delay. But yes, there are things that Ben wanted to ask about that might irritate me. And yeah, some of them do. Surprise, surprise. In the meantime, has anybody got any questions for me on the chat? It's not snowing here, if anybody wants to know what the weather's like. Vicky has just left. She's going on holiday to Iceland, because me and Vicky have not had a holiday together now for 4 years, I think. And I kind of don't really want to go on holiday for various reasons. But Vicky's got fed up of waiting for me, so she's off to Iceland for 4 days. Andy's finally in. Hello, Andy. You've missed all of the discussion about the weather, I'm afraid. So no, we'll probably talk about the weather a bit more. So right, well, if nobody's got any other questions, let's go back. I mean, yeah, if you've got anything you want to ask, as I say, you can ask. There's not going to be many opportunities. Right, Matt from Creaking Shelves, thank you for your question. What has been your favorite Essen 2017 release so far? Well, it's another good question, and it's one that I can't answer, because, so a couple of weeks ago I held GridCon, which is my post Essen gaming weekend. I've been doing it now for the last 17 or 18 years. I've only just recently renamed it GridCon, but it's basically a chance to play through as many of the new games of Essen that we brought back with us. And I probably played 10, 12 new games, something like that. And at least 8 of them, when I played them, was like, this is fantastic. They were like, loved them, 9 out of 10, wanted to play them again straight away. So it's tricky for me to be able to say right now what my favorite game of Essen was. I've played Agret a few times, really like it. I've played Nusfjord, or Knutsfjord, we're gonna start calling it now, which is a service station on the M6 motorway for those people who don't know. So Nusfjord, I've played that a lot and really liking that. I loved Flamme Rouge, even though it wasn't an Essen 2017 release. What else have I played that I really liked? There's just lots. I mean, I did my geek list of all of the games that I played at my convention. So yeah, every year there are great games that come out which I really, really enjoy playing, and this year was no exception. So there's a lot of games that I have enjoyed. It will probably be this time next year when I'll be able to say, oh, sorry, it'll probably be September, October of next year when I'm able to say what my favorite release of was this year. And hopefully by then I've got around to playing them all. Right, Andy, my first ever board gaming memory. Well, I have memories of playing, what is it, Mousetrap? The game with the puzzles where you line everything up and then you push a thing and something goes on and eventually it goes in a mousetrap. So technically not a game by by modern standards, of course, but I have a memory of playing that as a kid in the bathroom of where we used to live in Thornton, and I was probably 4, 5, something like that. I don't know. I mean, it's only this year that that memory has popped back into my head. I don't have many others from that time of my life, obviously, because I was very, very young. But playing Talisman when I was 12 on a Saturday. So on Saturday, when I was 12, 13, I was the guy. Everybody came around my house and we played games, and we'd spend all day playing Talisman, and I'd substitute figures because I played D&D at the time as well. So instead of the figures, you know, and whenever we drew the card for the dragon, I'd go and get a dragon. We'd put that on the board. So I remember playing Talisman when I was 12. So yeah, I've got a lot of memories of my early teens when I started dabbling with the board games, and you know, did a lot of the old Games Workshop games when they started doing board games, and my role playing. But my earliest experiences are probably, as I say, when I was a kid. Right. So yeah, Neil Martin's a design snob and he wants to play a good game. So yeah, good for you, Neil. I'm exactly the same. Luke, on a budget though, what 3 Essen titles would you recommend for purchase? I try not to recommend purchases wherever I can help it, because I can say whether I like a game or not. I don't really, I feel uncomfortable by saying, oh, you should go out and buy this. I'm also not aware of the prices of a lot of things sometimes. Obviously, where I am with what I do, I get a number of review copies. So I don't have to pay for them. Also, when you're working at these events, there is a thing that goes on between exhibitors where you trade games between each other. And as well as working for, as part of my work for CGE at these events, they give me a certain allowance. So over the course of the convention, I will be going around with copies of Codenames, Duet, Pulsar 2849, and saying, oh, do you want to do a trade? I'm interested in a copy of that game. Do you want to trade for this game? And what that means is a lot of the time I don't know what the prices are all the time. So something like Agra, heavy game, I know that was, I think it was 65 euros or something like that at Essen. So if you're on a budget, then I would say no to that one, because you could probably buy 2 or 3 games for that one. I have played Azul recently. Azul has got my nomination for the Spiel des Jahres next year. I think it's really, really good. I think it's an excellent gateway game. I don't know how much it is. I should have a quick look on Games Law. Paul will be able to tell us if Paul's listening. But I think Azul is relatively good price. As for the others, yeah, I'm not sure. If anybody's got any opinions in the chat about games, if you're on a budget, but I would need to look into that a bit more. Right, Andy, if you could add one thing into Robinson Crusoe, what would it be? That's a very good question. You see, Robinson Crusoe is a game that I was very, very happy to work on, not because I was a fan of the game. I'll be honest. My opinion of Robinson Crusoe was that it was massively overrated and it was a complete lookfest. And I didn't have a very high opinion of the game. It's very, very thematic and it tells a great story. But as a game, I think win or lose was predominantly down to the cards that you draw. And I thought, well, okay, you have decisions to make in the game, of course, but you know, if you take scenario 1, for example, if you don't find that shelter early on, you're pretty screwed. You need to find that shelter, otherwise you start dying. And whether you find that shelter or not is down to the exploration cards. Yes, you can build your own, but it costs so much wood and resources that you don't have at the start of the game. And then you've got all of the event cards, and I know they're all bad, but you can get hit by certain things in the wrong order. You can go hunting when you've got loads of weapons and just find some birds, which is 1 food. Or you could randomly draw the bear, which is like 6 food, and you're absolutely fine. Now, because I then worked on the game, I ended up with a different opinion of the game, and I now love the game. Not because the rules have changed, but because when I go into a game of Robinson Crusoe, I'm expecting a story-driven, thematic experience that's enjoyable to play. That's how I go into the game. I don't go into it with a Eurogame mentality and go, right, winning or losing is going to be all completely under our control, because it's not. And a game that is really, really hard. You know, people will win games of Robinson Crusoe, generally speaking, because they got a rule wrong. But even when they win a game, it's like, oh, brilliant, we won a game. Yeah, but if you now play it again, the chances of you winning again. So let's say you're really good at Robinson Crusoe and you play it 100 times, you might win 20% of those times. And is the times that you won, was it down to the choices you made? Because surely the choices you're going to make once you're good at the game are going to be, you know, very similar. Which means it is down to the look of the card. Anyway, I'm rabbiting on a bit. What I'm saying is I now really, really enjoy playing Robinson Crusoe because you just go into it thinking it's going to be a storytelling experience. I'm just going to lower myself a little bit, probably too high. There we go. Right. So if there was one question, if there was one thing I could change about the game, I'm really not sure, because at what it is, I think Robinson Crusoe delivers on exactly what it's supposed to do. Yeah, so reducing the look factor for me, if I could change something, is probably what I would do. I've no idea how you would do that. I'm just thinking off the top of my head. So the exploration tiles, I'd probably, for scenario 1, I'd make sure that there was a shelter at some point within the top few cards. Oh, the other thing as well is, to win scenario 1, you need to build the fire. And to get the fire, you need to invent the flint. And to do that, you need to have found mountains. Well, if the 2 mountains are at the bottom of the stack, then it's going to be a lot harder job. So maybe seeding that deck would help that. But then again, the thing with all cooperative games like that is, once you start changing it so that the game is more skill-based than luck-based, and once you've got the skill, you always win, which is, you know, it becomes a solvable problem. So co-op games do need an element of luck in there, but I think there should be some way of mitigating it. Anyway, hopefully that answers the question. So Azul, £32. Okay, so it's not the 20 quid, but you know, it does have really, really nice components and nice tiles in it. That probably adds to the cost. But 30 quid, I think, is a reasonable amount to pay for a game. Hello, Steve. Steve's here. Kids are playing Mario Marker, so he's online. Right, fantastic. One question. What's the most words you've got with a single clue in any version of Codenames? I've played it a lot. I'm better at the pictures version than I am with the words. I struggle to find connections with the words. I really struggle to make. I manage to get 2s sometimes, as long as there is only, you know, as long as there's enough words left. I'll get 2s, possibly even 3s. With the pictures, I'm able to get 2s quite easily, and possibly 3s and possibly 4s. I think I may have got a 5 once, or at least I thought I had a 5, and then of course players went and messed it up because they picked something random. But yeah, not high. What about everybody else in the chat? Have you got any kind of Codenames moment where you were able to get, you know, a 5 or a 6 or anything like that? That, to be honest, is, I mean, the game's great and I love playing Codenames, and I think it deserves to be where it is on the BGG list. But if there is a chance, and it's probably about 1 in 50, maybe even 1 in 100 games, that I'm going to drop this even lower, actually, because my head is still going off the top of the thing. Well, it's very uncomfortable. Anyway, I feel really low now. This is weird. So yeah, there's that 1 in 50 or 1 in 100 games where the grid gets laid out, and all of a sudden, oh no, that's too low. Is that too low? See, I'm on a delay. So yeah, no, let's go back. Sorry about this. It's because I've not got the Google chat window on screen. I can't actually see what's going on. Anyway, right, let's go back to it. Yeah, so I was saying there are those situations where you lay the grid out and suddenly there's 6 animals on your side and there's no animals on the other side, and you say animals 6. It's a downside of the game. I've seen it happen maybe once, maybe twice in the 200 or 300 games that I've played. So, you know, those reviewers out there, not naming anybody in particular, who say the game has a massive problem, yeah, it's not a massive problem. It happens very rarely. But anyway, in the chat window, Luke, had Codenames 2-player. How does Duet improve the 2-player count? To be honest, the base game 2-player, I wouldn't bother. It's in there. The rules are in there. It does work. Duet, it's fantastic. Duet is, a lot of people I know, Duet is now their favorite way to play the game, even if they're not playing 2-player, even if they're playing more than 2 players. So yeah, Duet is definitely look into it. Some guy did a video on how to play it, so if you want to go and check out his YouTube channel, then he's telling you how to play. But yeah, Duet is really good, and it does change the 2-player experience very much so. Right, too low. Yes, thank you, Ray. Let's just go back up. Steve's got another question. Oh, the interesting Codenames game memory or anecdote. This was when I had the prototype, and a friend of mine, Joel, basically gave a clue of Westeros 5. Brilliant. Okay, so we looked at the board. Westeros 5. Let's have a look at it. And we went dragon, touched dragon, and he went, no, it's not dragon. So the whole table was in uproar, obviously. And then the other team had a go, and then it was back to us. And we selected TV. No, not TV either. So that was quite a memorable moment. That went down in history at our local club as a terrible clue. So question 2 from Steve. You've mentioned a few times online and in person that semi-co-ops is a broken and flawed mechanism. Care to elaborate why for the benefit of the viewing masses? Yes, it is true. I believe that semi-cooperative games just do not work. I think it is a completely flawed mechanic. Now, there are some people that play semi-cooperative games and they like them. So clearly it's not a flawed mechanic. For me, it is. But any game where you are all... So let's take Terraforming Mars. It's not a cooperative game by any means at all, because it's competitive and there will be one winner. And within the game, you are all working towards the same goal, but it's not semi-cooperative. So my definition of a semi-cooperative game is one where there is a lose condition, and that lose condition can cause all players to lose. Well, what you end up with is, you don't always do this, but you can, is you get the person who's not doing very well, tanks the game in order that the game is ruined and that basically everybody loses. And depending on the theme of the game, then that doesn't work. So if we take CO2 from Vital Lacerda, is a semi-cooperative game. Now, he's doing a new version of CO2 this year, no, next year, yeah, next year, and it's going to be cooperative. So that's going to fix that problem. But the original version of the game is semi-cooperative. So you are supposed to be all working together to keep the CO2 levels of the planet below a certain amount, whilst also trying to make money and build your power plants and everything else. Okay, but then you play it, and one player isn't doing very well, and the game is getting to, you know, near the end or 2/3 of the way through, and then that player realizes they're not going to win. There's nothing they can do to win. So what they do is they start building lots of coal factories, deliberately increasing the CO2 levels to cause the game to end. Now, I'm talking about CO2, but this applies to almost every semi-co-op game where there is a lose condition for all players. Is one player or two players can deliberately try to force the end of the game so that everybody loses, because they have no chance of winning whatsoever. Now, some people might say, oh, well, that's the problem with the player, and don't play with those people. Well, I'm sorry, but when I'm playing a board game, you know, I play to win. If I can't win, I'll play to come second. If I can't come second, I'll play to come third. I wouldn't do that personally, but I know a lot of people that could. And I don't think that's a problem with the player. I think it's a problem with the game. So, yeah, I'm not a big fan of semi-co-op. It just seems that it completely breaks the theme of the game, because going back to CO2, you would not have somebody doing that. Can you imagine 5 companies building energy power plants, and one of them's not doing very well because his Facebook doesn't have as many likes, so he decides to, you know, literally end the world. It just doesn't work. So anyway, semi-co-op, not a big fan. Ray, what has led to a bad experience playing a game that you like? It's a good question. Normally, the games that I like, I normally play them with players that I like. But there are some times where I play a game that I like, and I'm introducing it to other people. And during the game, one of those people doesn't like the game. That you know, it can happen. We all like different types of games. Just because I like it doesn't mean everybody else is going to like it. But it means I want to show it to other people to see if they like it. And if they don't like it, that's absolutely fine. But then spending an hour and a half during the game completely and utterly saying everything negative about the game during the game, then that's a problem. That happens quite rarely. The last time that happened, I don't play games with that person anymore. So that's a conscious decision of mine to avoid playing games with that person. But yeah, it's usually down to the player experiences. There was one game that I played. I can't remember what game it was. I think it may have been Robinson Crusoe, just talking about that again. So I'd had like 4 games in a row of Robinson Crusoe where it was all really, really fantastic and it was good fun and the story was being told and we won one of them and we lost the other ones and, you know, it was great and we had some really, really good memorable moments. And then I played one game of it where literally everything just went completely wrong right from the start and no matter what we did, we couldn't do anything about it. And by sort of round 4, we thought, okay, well, this is going to be a disaster. And we ended up playing for about another 3/4 of an hour, and then we all died on round 7. So that wasn't a great experience. Maybe we should have just called it early. But you know, in a game with that amount of luck and randomness, you can have that sometimes. It's like when you're playing Pandemic. You can play Pandemic, and you can get really, really lucky with the epidemic cards, or you can get disastrously unlucky to the point where there was no point you playing the game, because no matter how good the choices you make in it are, if the cards are completely against you, then there's nothing you can do. And that, for me, that was kind of a bit of a waste of time. So, and I don't like my time being wasted. Anyway, so David says, oh gosh, there's quite a lot of questions here. I need to catch up and stop talking. He's not a big fan of Chinese food in general, but this takeaway actually is not that bad. Oh, right, he's just talking about his dinner. Fantastic. Well, I'm glad your Chinese is nice. Vicky's actually gone away on holiday, so I've got a pack of Tesco Finest fruit and nut cookies. That's my dinner for tonight. Right, Luke. So, oh yeah, we've answered that. Semi-co-op, Dead of Winter. I've had horrible experiences with Dead of Winter. Played Dead of Winter around my house. Paul, you might have even been in that game. I can't remember, but yeah, Dead of Winter. Should have talked about that. Dead of Winter for me. I don't ever want to play it again. It was just. I mean, Dead of Winter is an amazing game for the theme and the concept and everything else. And the way that the hidden goals work in the game is genius, because the whole thing of Dead of Winter is, oh, what's he doing? Oh, what? He's going to the library. Why is he going to the library? Oh, why is he doing that? The whole reason for those hidden goals to be in there is to throw suspicion on everybody all the time, and it really, really adds to the theme and the atmosphere. And I felt it when I was playing it. I was like, I don't know who to trust, because everybody seems to be doing something for themselves, and they're saying, oh, I'm going to put some cards here, but we don't know whether they're putting right. It really, really captured the feel of the game. Fantastic. And then we got to the end of the game, and the goal of the game was to complete 3 objectives, whatever it was. I can't remember. And we did that, and we got to the end of the game, and it was like, right, so as a group, our objectives are to do this, this, and this. We got to the end of the game, we'd done those objectives, and then it was like, right, so we've won, yeah? And it was like, right, now everybody reveal their hidden goal cards. Oh, you managed to collect 3 books. And then they looked at me and it was like, oh, did you collect 4 fuel canisters? No, I tried, but surely the main goal was more important. Yeah, you've not won. He's won because he collected 3 books. And I'm like, hang on a minute. We've completed the objectives of the scenario, but I've not won. In fact, he's won and I've actually lost. That really, really didn't work for me. Now, there is a way you can play it where you can say, oh, okay, well, if you complete the objectives, everybody wins. but then the people who got their personal goals is like a gold star. We tried playing that with one of the scenarios and it completely broke the scenario. So yeah, Dead of Winter, good example. Favorite Stefan Feld game? It was Castles of, this is David, thank you very much for the question. It was Castles of Burgundy for many, many years, and then I started playing Trajan a lot, and I really, really like Trajan. I don't care that it's 6 mini games in one. Whatever, if you want to criticize it because it is that, that's what it is. It's not hiding from that. I have no problem with that. Really, really like Trajan. Stefan Feld is one of my favorite designers. I haven't played Merlin yet. From what I hear about it, I don't think it's going to be my favorite Feld. So at the moment, it's Trajan, but there is a lot of them that I really, really do like. Desert Island games, you can take 5. Which 5 and why? Mage Knight, obviously, because it's my #1 game of all time. You can play it solo, you can play it competitively, you can play it cooperatively, not semi-cooperatively. It takes ages, so that'll keep you busy when you're stuck in a desert island. And it has so many different scenarios and variant rules that there's so much there that will keep you busy. And it's a brain burner, so it makes it gets me thinking. But picking 5 games is going to be tricky. I mean, Through the Ages, Gloomhaven, they're my top 3 games of all time. So they're probably the ones that I'll take. Apart from that, I probably should pick some shorter games because I picked 3 really long games. Probably some shorter games that are quite good fun as well. I'm not sure which ones. 1 LP, CD, and 3 books. Oh, yeah, I'll have to come back to that. I don't really listen to much music these days, and I don't read books. Right, what have we got? The issue you described for semi-co-ops applies to competitive games as well. Let's have a look. I just need to, I'm going to pop out this chat if I can, because it's a bit small on the screen. Pop out chat. There we go. Right, that's better. So, yeah, so Icarus Must Burn is saying that the issue I described for semi-co-ops applies to competitive games as well. For example, king making. Yep, you're absolutely right. It's that point in the game where the player who's coming last thinks, well, hang on a minute, I have not got any way that I can win. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to screw over Paul because it's his house and that'll be fun. I don't play games with those people either. If you're not going to win and you're coming last and there is nothing you can do about it, then we'll try and get the game over as soon as possible. If you're coming last and there's a chance that you can come fourth, try your best to come fourth. There are some people that I know who say, oh, well, if I don't win, I don't care where I come. Winning is the only thing. And what that means is if they are in a position where they're doing terribly and they're coming last, then what they'll do is they'll just attack the person who's winning and therefore make the person who's in second win. So, this is one of those games etiquette things, and I'm not saying everybody should play the game exactly the same way I play, but as I mentioned earlier on, I play to come first. If I can't come first, I play to come second. If I can't come second, I play to come third. For me, to distort the outcome of the game by attacking the person who's winning for whatever reason, and therefore giving the game to the second person, yeah, I try to avoid doing that if I can. Right, what have we got? So Chris Incow, he prefers Trajan to castles as well. Yeah, interesting that I used to prefer castles, but as styles, as tastes change over the years. I think I've played a lot of Castles of Burgundy, and I do really, really enjoy it. But then as I played Trajan a bit more, I felt that had more substance to it. So Chris wants to know, what games do you remember having a king-making problem the most? Well, it can be anything. It can be anything where one player can directly affect another player, and I've seen it in a lot of games. Yeah, it's tricky. But the whole point about interaction in games and the phrase multiplayer solo, which a lot of people absolutely hate, and a lot of people go, oh, it's a multiplayer solo game, I'm not going to get it, I want lots of player interaction. I have no problems with multiplayer solo games. There doesn't need to be any interaction for me, and that's fine. I don't mind doing my own thing in the absence of other players. I like a little bit of interaction, but I don't want that interaction to be massive. If the interaction levels go up, then I think probably any game is prone to king making. You know, any game where you can affect another player's position and deliberately hurt them, then that's prone to king making. Right, Icarus says he's missing the point that he made in the rest of the comments. Right, I'm oversimplifying the problem. Very possibly. The issue is that our rules for such games are simply incomplete. So the other things he says is the issue you described for semi-co-ops applies to competitive games as well. For example, king-making. Games that are vulnerable to this issue are not broken. They need additions, rules outlining. It's an issue with a more advanced type of gameplay. Oversimplifying it by labeling it as a game or player issue is not useful. Oh, as a game issue or a player issue is not useful. Okay, it means that more rules are required to set expectations. Players to optimize self, not tank games. Well, yeah, I can see where you're coming from, but I think it's very difficult in some games. So if we take Eclipse, for example, I played a game of Eclipse, possibly the last game I ever played of Eclipse, and it was 4 players, and one player wasn't doing that well. He'd not got off to a good start, and he decided about half an hour or 3/4 of an hour into the game that he just wasn't going to bother playing the game really anymore for himself, and he just vacated all of his planets and put everything he can into attacking one other player randomly. Now, this person does not come to my house anymore. This person was uninvited, not because I had problems with what he did, which I did, but it's the fact that it annoyed everybody else who was at the table. All of the members of my regular gaming group, it annoyed them so much. And I said, look, I'm sorry, but that's kind of, we don't want people to play games like that, really, you know, deliberately saying, and I think he said at one point, I don't play games to win anymore. I just play games to piss about and annoy all the other players. Well, yeah, sorry, but you're not coming anymore. Anyway, in a game like Eclipse, where one player could just deliberately, you know, do that and just throw their entire attacking force against another player, and that would hurt the other player. Are you saying that the rules of the game should compensate for that? I'm not sure. In that particular case, the person who got attacked actually won the game. So maybe Eclipse is brilliant, and maybe if somebody does that to you, the mechanics of the game and the way that the point scoring works, I don't know, maybe it balances out. Anyway, Icarus, yeah, thank you very much for watching. I'm happy to carry on this conversation. The live chat, possibly not the best place for it because I'm not fully understanding what you're saying. If you want to post on my BGG guild number 2258, I'll happily try and explain, you know, or you can persuade me otherwise. That'd be great. So, Chris wants to know, do I have a favorite play account for the Euro games that I play? Yes, 3 or 4, but generally 3. I'm not a fan of Euro games played at 2 players unless they are specifically 2-player games. Now, that's not to say that they don't work, because they do work and they're fine. And tomorrow, a friend of mine is coming over and we're going to play aggro. And at the moment, he's the only person coming over. So we're going to have 2-player aggro. And the same friend, I've played Lisboa with him 5 times, 2-player. And it's been fine. And I've enjoyed it. But I would prefer those games. So in the case of Lisboa with 2 players, so I'm not kind of playing the full game. I'm kind of, there's a little bit of the game that I'm not playing with. Whereas with 3 players, I'm playing the full game. And there's low interaction in that game, but I still prefer that 3-player. So aggro, I would probably prefer 3 than 4, just because of the playtime. Kalis, for example, I think he's absolutely great at 3 or 4, although it takes 5. It can be a bit long, and the board is a bit too tight. So generally speaking, 3 or 4. And if 2 players, normally I would play games that are 2-player only. Right, Steve, backup question. Card sleeving, waste of time and money, a good idea or not bothered either way? Sleeving. So, Steve, you need to stalk me more, because for the last 3 or 4 years, I have been very vocal on my opinion of sleeves everywhere I can. And what I've done is I've been very vocal about the people who are against sleeves. Now, there are 2 main types of card sleeves that you can get. There are cheap penny sleeves, thin, whatever. They are, in my opinion, a complete waste of money. They make the cards stick together, they crinkle, they feel horrible, they're card protectors. So if you're trading baseball cards or whatever, they're fine for that. But you can't, you know, depends on the make. But I've had some thin sleeves from a particular supplier, and they just literally, you could hold one card and have the other 5 hanging off it because they just stick together. They're a complete nightmare and they don't work whatsoever. And I actually spoke to that publisher, and basically they replaced them for premium sleeves, which brings me on to premium sleeves. Ultra Pro, Fantasy Flight Games, Mayday's premium sleeves, fantastic. I am a big sleever for 2 reasons. It protects my cards, and I don't want to play a game 10 times and then have all the cards marked and bent and damaged or whatever. But I find them easier to shuffle. And some people say, oh, how can you find cards easier to shuffle when they've got sleeves on? And people say, that's just impossible. They're easier to shuffle without sleeves on. And if you want to just bear with us a minute, I'm going to go and get a pack of sleeves and I'll show you what I mean. So radio silence will commence. Right, I'm back. Great Western Trail, fantastic game. Joint favourite game of 2016 for me. And I have sleeved the cards. Now, why have I sleeved the cards? Because you shuffle them a lot. And I've played this game like 10 or 12 times, and I want to continue to play it. And I don't want my cards to get damaged or marked or anything else. And you do shuffle them a lot during the game. So here we are. Hope you can see this. This is a pack of sleeved cards. Now, sleeved cards take up more vertical space, and when you buy sleeves for the first time, you put them on the board, they'll probably slide everywhere because they're brand new. But once they've been played a couple of times, it's fine. So here's a pack of sleeved cards, and the reason I can shuffle them, I can do that. So I can literally slam them together and really give them a good mix-up like that. You can't do that with cards. Well, you can try and do that with cards. You're going to bash the edges of them completely. And also, I've tried doing it with cards. You actually can't, because they just end up doing that. So yeah, so this is why I like sleeve cards. It's because I can give them a really good shuffle like this, and it keeps the cards perfectly protected. So let me throw them on the floor. Oh, there we go. Right. So Ray says that sleeving games that are expensive and not easily replaceable. Yeah, that's a good one. Paul says that he sleeves some games and not others, depending on how many times they might get played and the quality of the cards. Yes, I've not sleeved my cards for Spirit Island because they get shuffled once at the start of the game. And I'm not going to play that game as many times as I play Great Western Trail, for example. Not that it isn't a good game, it's a great game. But I've not sleeved those. So I don't sleeve all of my games. I just sleeve the ones that I really like. I'm going to play lots. And the cards are going to get shuffled. Have you added any bling to the games in your collection? A few. I did it a little bit more years ago, but now that I'm getting so many games coming in and games are not sticking around for as long, and I'm moving on to other ones, then you put all of that time and effort into bling into a game, and then I don't generally play it that much. And again, not because it's a good game, just because I've got other things to do. And since forming Gaming Rules, my free time has dropped to almost zero. So the times when I am, sat in front of the TV watching a little bit of comedy or something like that will be times where I'm putting a game away or I'm updating my videos, or I'll be doing something. So I don't have much time to bling games anymore. I'm focusing on, playing the games more. Longest game you've ever played time-wise? Advanced Civilization at one of my gaming weekends in Taunton. So this would be, I moved to Taunton 2007, I think. So this would have been between 2007 and 2008. And Advanced Civilization is a game which I love. And I try to play it once every couple of years. And having a big games weekend is a perfect opportunity to play it. And we were always going to play it. And we played it 8-player. And we started at 10 o'clock in the evening, which is not the right. So 10 o'clock in the evening on a Friday, after we'd been to the pub and had a carvery and a couple of pints, we started it. 15 hours later, we finished it. I'm never going to do that again. I can't stay awake for that length of time anymore. And if I'm going to play a 15-hour game, I'll start it at 10 o'clock in the morning rather than 10 o'clock in the evening. So that was the longest gaming experience that I've had. Right. Thoughts on the 18xx game system? I probably will never play an 18xx game ever again in my life. Maybe if they come out with one which is an hour to an hour and a half. But to be honest, the last one I played was one of the shorter ones. I think it was 18FL, which was about 2 hours long or something like that. The 18xx game system, I have a lot of respect for what it's done for the gaming hobby. It wouldn't, if it wasn't a good system, it wouldn't be as popular as it is. And I remember playing 1830. How old am I now? Over 20 years ago, I remember playing 1830. And the fact that these 18xx games are still probably more popular now than they were then, and there's new 8x titles coming out all the time. As a game system, I think it is extremely clever, and I think it is a very, very good system. It's just not for me. So yeah, that's what I think about that system. Have you sleeved Gloomhaven, and if so, yes. So the cards that I've sleeved in Gloomhaven are the player's ability cards, and not because they're shuffled, because you don't shuffle your own player ability cards, but you're holding them all the time. So I've sleeved them, and I haven't sleeved all of them. I've sleeved the number of cards that you need for that character. So, for example, the Spellweaver, I've got 8 sleeves for the Spellweaver. So when the Spellweaver goes into an adventure and makes her deck of 8 cards, there's 8 sleeves, so that you can easily chop and change, and these are the 8 cards you want. I've sleeved the attack modifier decks for each of the characters, so that's 4 decks at 20 cards each, plus the extra cards. I've sleeved the monster attack modifier decks. I have not sleeved the monster ability decks, because that would be loads. I also haven't sleeved all of the items or anything like that. I've just sleeved, the player cards and the ones that get shuffled. So in terms of cost, that's probably probably about £10 I've spent on sleeves for Gloomhaven. Right, game that has taken the longest multiple of the publisher's expected / normal time taken. Hang on a minute. Game that has taken the longest multiple. I'm not sure, Ray. I'm not sure what the question means. Game that has taken the longest multiple of the publisher's expected. Oh, a game that has taken longer than it was printed on the box. Oh, that must mean I have to look at the game time printed on the box. It is true that a lot of times that is printed on the side of the box is very much of an underestimate of how long it will take. I don't know whether that's as much of a problem. Published time is 30 minutes and then it took 2 hours. Yeah, I can't answer that question immediately. There are some definitely that I have played where it says on the box X and it's taken us a lot longer. So going back to Gloomhaven, Gloomhaven says 30 minutes per player. We generally take between 2.5 and 3 hours per scenario. So that's 3 hours for 4 players, which is about 45 minutes per player, which is 50% longer than it says. Some people view that as a problem. We don't play particularly fast, and for us, 3 hours is a perfectly good length for a Gloomhaven scenario because of how epic it is normally when we play. I'm trying to think. I'm sure there is a few games where we've played it and it's been double the length of time that it says on the box, and that will come down. Now, just looking at Great Western Trail, what does it say for the Great Western Trail? Because this is a game which has a lot of criticism over the playtime. Have they even put it on the box? They should. It's one of those things that should be on the box. Here we go. 75 to 150 minutes. What's 150 minutes? 2.5 hours. When we first played Great Western Trail, well, before BGGCon 2016, lots of people were playing Great Western Trail. And I was hearing lots of criticism that it was a 4-hour game. And almost every group that was playing it at BGGCon 2016 were taking 4 hours to play it. And everybody was saying it's too long. We played it, and our first game was 4 hours long. And they're right. That is too long for a game. We now play 4 players in about 2.5 hours, which is the published time that it says on the box. So That's right. 75 minutes to 150 minutes. I think that's probably about right. But when you first play games, it is always going to take longer, and that's why games sometimes get criticism for taking longer than it says on there. Other times, you're right, games just do take longer than what it says on there, no matter how many times you've played. But sometimes putting a longer playtime on boxes puts people off, but it's disingenuous. Having a game of Stone Age that took 3+ hours. Wow, gosh, yeah, it should be like a 90-minute game. Right, of the games you can mention, what are you looking forward to receiving the most in 2018? Another good question. Now, for those people who listen to my podcast, you'll know that podcast 50, whatever it was, which went out a week before Essen, was talking about all of the new hot games that are coming out at Essen in 2018. And what I did is I did a poll on the Board Game Trading in Chat UK Facebook group. Hello to everybody from that group who's listening. And also I took the Tabletop Together tools top 6, and I got Matt Evans and Tom Heath on the show to talk about their top games. The reason I did that is because I had no idea what was coming out. So, and I didn't have time. Everybody knows that I work a lot of hours, and this was the first year that I went into Essen without really knowing what games were coming out. Obviously, I'd heard of a couple, but I really didn't know. So I got everybody else on the podcast to contribute to what games they were looking forward to help me decide what I was looking forward to. So Andy, you're asking me what games am I looking forward to that are coming out next year? I have no idea. You know, Founders of Gloomhaven will be coming out next year, and I am looking forward to that. I'm involved in that game in that I'll be doing the official rules video for it, but it is a game which I played a few times in prototype, and it's coming out, and I'm really looking forward to it. It's hard to say, and the geek lists have already started of what is your most anticipated game for 2018. So I'm going to talk about 2 of my clients here. I don't normally talk about my clients in public, but I'm gonna do it here just to show you the differences. So Portal Games, who are not exactly a client at the moment, I'm not doing any work for them anymore. I haven't done their last set of rule books. They've already announced what their games are going to be for 2018. Ignacy did a keynote speech at Essen where he put up the list of the games that they are publishing in 2018 with the front cover of the boxes finished already. Brilliant. That is amazing, because from a marketing point of view, you are in there straight away and you are getting people excited about your games already the year before, telling them what's coming out. And these geek lists have already, as I said, they've already started. There are geek lists up there of what's the game you're most looking forward to in 2018. And it's already raising buzz for games that are not going to be out for another year, but it's building up hype and it's building up anticipation. And that's a great thing from a marketing point of view. Now let's look at CGE. CGE won't be announcing their games for next year until probably May or June, which means all of these gig lists and all of these buzz lists, they'll have missed all of them. They won't be on them. People will not be talking about their games at all. I've been trying to persuade them that we need to bring that forward a bit because of this marketing opportunity that they're missing. But the way that CGE work is very different. They're working on a number of games. They won't decide probably themselves until March or April which of those games are going to be the ones for this year. They don't just decide now, and they have a lot of choices available to them, and then they decide later on. So they always decide things a bit later. Also, CGE, and I am speaking to them about this every opportunity I can, they don't get the front covers of the boxes done until maybe a month before Essen, which is missing a huge marketing opportunity. The reason I'm saying all of this is most of the games that are coming out in 2018, nobody knows about yet. So, Agra, I don't know when that was first announced. Going back a few years, I picked up the Stauford Dynasty. Nobody knew anything about that game until a week before Essen. And then all of a sudden, an entry appeared on Board Game Geek, and the rules weren't even available until I think the day before Essen. So it's hard for me to say what games I'm looking forward to in 2018, because I don't want to throw attention on some of them when there are loads of other ones coming out which nobody knows about yet. So watch this space. Right, what other questions have we got? Ian's here. Hello, Ian. He can't think of any good questions, but he's enjoying listening. Ask me about the weather. Has it snowed? No. Right. But thank you to everybody who's posting pictures of how snowy it is there. Right, David is still here. I hope the Chinese is good. I think you finished it. Steve, is there an IP from a TV show, movie franchise, or comic book series that you'd like to see appear in board game form at some point? Wow. Good questions. IP in board games can be hit and miss. Sometimes the IP is thrown on there and the game itself is just awful in my opinion, but it sells because it has an IP attached to it. And then other times the IP can really help. So, for example, a few months ago, a Buffy the Vampire Slayer game came out. I was assuming that it would be awful. A friend of mine played it and said, actually, it's not a bad game. So, whereas the Labyrinth board game that came out, I've heard is a complete shocking and total disaster, but probably sold loads, not to gamers, but it probably sold to families and things like that. IPs. We haven't had a Lord of the Rings game, have we? No, I'm sure we have. Yeah, it's a good question. You might have to ask me that on the guild, and I might have to have a bit of a think about it. I'd have to go back and think about any of the books that I've read or any of the films that I've really liked that I think would be a good IP for a game. Because, you know, the Foundation trilogy is one of my favorite trilogies or favorite books that I've ever read. Would that work as a board game? Probably not in any way at all, but, you know, I really like that. Right. Yeah, we're all talking about David's Chinese on the chat. So, Andy, what's he talking about? First Martians rulebook. Yeah, how many conventions have you attended in 2017? Good question. Less than I am attending in 2018. I've done my plan 2018, and I'm going to about 15 or 16 of them. So let's go through them. January, HandyCon. HandyCon is run by Paul Harris, a friend of mine. It's in High Wycombe in the UK. That was in January. March, Aircon up in Harrogate, run by Mark Cook, who's going to be a guest on the next podcast, chatting about Dragonmeet. Anyway, so Aircon is in March, and I've actually been invited to that as a guest this year. I mean, I was going anyway, and I'm going to be working there, but it's nice to have been invited to be a guest there as well. So that's Aircon. Then I go over to the Czech Republic, which isn't really a convention. It's more of a 4-day gaming event where I work with the CGE guys. It is a trip away, but it's not a convention. Then there's Baycon, which is not the one in San Francisco. It's the one in Exeter. It's been running for over 30 years. Exeter is like 15 minutes drive away from me. So I go to that every year. So that's Baycon. What else have we got? UK Games Expo in June. Then there is also in June, Origins, which I go to. July is Manacon, which is up in Lugabaruga, or Loughborough, if you want to pronounce it properly. Or is it Leicester? No, it's Leicester. Yeah, it's Leicester. So that's in July. August is Gen Con. September, I think I have a free month. Then it's Essen. Then it's BGG Con, and then it's Dragonmeet. And that doesn't include the two that I organise myself. I organise 2 big 4-day gaming weekends at Gaming Rules HQ, where I have about 20-25 people coming over and playing games. And next year I've got a few extra ones on the calendar as well. So apologies if I forgot about any of the ones that I went to this year, but that's pretty much it. So do I plan to attend more or less next year? More, because I want to step up the work that I'm doing for CGE. And also there are more conventions to go to. So the City of Games is a new one, which is done by Frank West, who designed City of Kings. That's happening in Bristol, and that's happening in February. I think it's February. So of course I'm going to go to that. I want to support Frank, and it's in Bristol, so it's only, you know, it's not far away for me to go to, and I'm going to be working at that one. Which other ones am I going to this year, which I haven't been to before? I think that might be it. It might just be that one extra. Yeah. So Andy, yeah, City of Games Bristol. I think you're going there. Yes, I'm going there. I've got 2 tables. I'll be doing demos. Games that surprised you this year and best worst rulebook of the year. Worst rulebook of the year. Yeah. I don't really want to say First Martians because my name's in the back of First Martians. I got sent a copy of the First Martians rulebook fairly late on in the process, and I didn't have much time to go through it. And I went through and I highlighted a number of bits that I had to look at self-contained. I had to read a bit and go, I don't understand what this bit means. Please reword it. Or this example image is showing the wrong card. Please change it. Or you've circled this and you need to circle that. I was doing micro changes on the rulebook. I wasn't able to blind test the rulebook. I wasn't able to get the game, get the rulebook, and actually try playing the game from the rulebook. And most people I know who've tried that have had a big problem with it. There are a few people that have been okay with it. A few people have said, no, we read the rulebook and we watched Rodney's video, and they were okay. But most people I know have had a lot of problems playing that game from the rulebook. There is now like a 60-page PDF guide document guiding you through your first game, which I think helps people. So I've not tried playing the game. I'm unlikely to, just because I haven't got that time to invest in it. Rulebooks that I've read, the Transatlantic one wasn't great, and I criticized it. I've read a lot worse. The Transatlantic rulebook, there were a few things in it that were not worded really that well. And there was the example images were okay, but the wording was a bit iffy. It took me about an hour and a half of adding comments to that rule book and saying, oh, just change this bit, reword this bit, and then you're good to go. And that was all it needed. There are other rule books that come out which are just, completely incomprehensible. I'm going to throw this question back to the chat. What's the worst rule book that everybody else has read this year? Because you've probably read, maybe a lot more than me. In terms of best rule books, I've read quite a few of them. I'd heard the Agra rule book was really, really not good, and it's fine. I've made a few comments on the rule book myself to them because they use the male pronoun. They use his rather than their or his or her. So I've made that as a comment. But we learned how to play Agra, as I posted in my Agra review, which is going live for everybody tomorrow. We learned how to play Agra from the rule book late at night, and the only rules we got wrong were because we read them wrong in the rule book. And then when we went back to the rule book afterwards, they were clear. So for a heavy game like Agra, the rule book might be a bit convoluted in places and a bit, oh, you've now got to look over here, but it's a heavy game. The rule book was clear. The ultimate point of a rule book is, are you able to play the game correctly from the rulebook? If you are, tick. After that, you've got different degrees of how good it is. But as long as it achieves its primary objective, when a rulebook doesn't work is when you can't play the game from the rulebook, or you end up playing a rule wrong because it's printed wrong in the rulebook. So yeah, I'm keen to know what other people. Ian's saying, am I going to City of Games in February? Hopefully, yes. I've answered that. Have I played Vikings? Nope. I remember seeing that some people were talking about it. Vikings 878 or something. I think Rodney did a video for it. I don't know anything about it. I think it's Academy Games. I've played a couple of their games in the past. I'm not a big fan of the games of theirs that I've played, even though they're quite popular. So yeah, I don't know anything about that one. Assuming that is the one that you mean. Dice Forge wasn't a great rulebook according to Ian. Not played it. I remember it being played at one of my games weekends, and I think Efka came up to me with the rulebook and he went, "You didn't have anything to do with this rulebook, did you?" And I said, "No." And he went, "Right, well, you really should have." So yeah, I think he was struggling with that rulebook as well. Yeah, what else have we got? Let's just go back to the questions on the BGG Guild thread. Ben Osteen again. What sort of hard science tackled in a game? E.g., High Frontier, Compounded, Leaving Earth, rather than TI4, Eclipse, etc. Well, he's not mentioned The Expanse in there as well, which I've not seen The Expanse. It's on my list of TV programs that I want to watch, but I believe that that's hard sci-fi as well. Hard sci-fi is something that I am a big fan of. I quite like, even though I'm a bit of a Trekkie, I do quite like my hard sci-fi rather than my, techno babble, magical shields and stuff like that. I like ones where it's, real, effectively, and you can imagine that happening. But I don't know of any hard sci-fi thing that could be converted. This is kind of on the same things as we were talking about earlier on with IPs. Not really sure about that. Speaking of High Frontier, though, a game talking about things that I have respect for that I will never play, like 18xx. I have massive, massive respect for Phil Eklund and the games that he makes, because the amount of research that he must put into his games to get them so detailed and so realistic about how they are. I mean, you just look at the board and the rulebook for High Frontier, and you're having to work out burn rates and fuel levels and all of this lot. It's a huge amount of work. And then he did Greenland and Neanderthal, and those games have a huge historical, there's a lot of detail in those games. I would never ever play them. The rule books are absolutely awful. Most Phil Eklund games that I know, the rule books are incomprehensible from what I understand. And I've tried reading a couple and just, had a complete failing on them. And the games themselves are not for me. They tend to be simulations rather than games. And I've tried a couple of them. And in one of them, I played Origins, something, How to Be Human, whatever. And it told the story of how humans evolved from like cavemen into modern day society. Fine, great. And there's probably a lot of realistic stuff that's in there, and he's clearly done his research. But it's just a dice fest. It was just rolling. It was a simulation of how it would happen. And no kidding, there was one point where on my turn I rolled a dice, and if I didn't get a 6, I missed my turn, and I had to keep rolling until I got a 6. And I thought, well, what is this? This is like frustration from when I was a kid. So anyway, he's going, and I played Greenland, and it was just, okay, you're going hunting for fish because that's what the natives had to do to survive, and we're going to replicate that experience of going fishing by roll a boatload of dice, and if you roll a 1, you get bitten by the shark. And if you roll, great. It's very realistic at simulating what happened, but it was just rolling a bunch of dice. So Phil Eklund games, not for me. Thank you very much, but huge respect for them. Right, David said, not that Vikings, Paul. It's an older game, tile laying. Okay. I don't think I know it then. So, no, I don't know that game, David. So, sorry with that. Cormac is on here. Hello. Wonder if the Agra rulebook is like most wargaming rulebooks. Well, interestingly, they've gone with a style of numbered bullet points. So, the Agra rulebook is full of rule 6.3.2.1. I'm not exaggerating. That's how detailed it goes. I don't do those numbered bullet points in my rulebooks. I know GMT do them, and they are more suited to wargame rulebooks. I personally don't like them. I think that it kind of puts people off a bit, and it makes it seem more complex than it is. It is useful for referencing other rulebooks, but I just say, see the rules on trading, page 15, rather than see rule 6.3.2.1. But yeah, technically clear, there's a lot of rules that you're just bound to misplay something your first game. Yeah, as I say, the rules that we misplayed were absolutely clear in the rule book. We just misplayed them and forgot about them. There were some bits that we had to read 2 or 3 times, like the sailor. We had to read 2 or 3 times. We think we're playing it right, and now we understand it. And the iconography is actually really clear once you understand it. And the trader, I don't know whether it was late at night, but the first game we played was me, Adam, Paul, and another Paul. So it's Paul Marsh, Paul Harris, me, and Adam. And 3 of us could not work out how the trader worked at all. Paul Harris did, and he was abusing it like there's no tomorrow. He didn't win the game, but it was after that first game that we were like, oh, this trader is really, really powerful. We couldn't get our head around how it worked, even though it is probably clear in the rulebook. So Ray, you mentioned about the rulebook using him, he. Any more things you've seen that could make board gaming appear to be less blokey? Well, that's a big thing of mine. I've been on seminars at conventions where I have, ranted and raged about the fact that some publishers say the player picks up his pieces. It annoys me, but it doesn't annoy me just because it's something that annoys me. It annoys me because it's not inclusive. And I'm happy and proud to say that some of the publishers that I now work with, I have persuaded them to stop using male pronouns, and they now use they and their, which is great, because I was speaking to TR Knight the other day, who's also a freelance rulebook editor, and I was talking to him, and it was some detailed conversation about some specific thing about the way that we work, and it's how we get sent the files. And he was saying to me that, well, he's just the hired gun. He's the editor. They're paying him to edit the rulebook, so he does whatever it is they want him to do. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't do that. That's not me. If somebody gives me something to do and I say, okay, well, you're giving it me to do, but actually, I don't think you should do this. I think you should do this instead. I can't keep my mouth shut. If I've got something to say, I want to say it. And if that ends up spoiling my relationship with the publisher, then so be it. Luckily for me, it hasn't. All of the publishers that who I have been working for seem to respect my opinion on things. So when I say to them, please don't use male pronouns in rulebooks because it's exclusive. Some of my clients still use they use he or she. So the player picks up his or her counter. I personally don't use that because it's not fully inclusive. So I always prefer to use they and their. But anyway, is there anything else that can be done to make gaming appear less blokey? It's not really. There is a high female presence at conventions. It's still lower than 50%. I don't think we're ever going to get to 50%. That's just the way it is. There are some things in life which have more men at them than women, and there are some things that have more women at them than men. That's just the reality. It's not that gamers are excluding females. That's just the way it is. My gaming group that I run on a Wednesday night is about 50-50, and that's really, really good. But then the other weekend, I had 20 people over for games, and I invited a wide range of people, and they were all men. It's not that I only invited men. It's just it's not male dominated. It's not like Magic the Gathering was 20 years ago, where there'd be, 2 women in the corner with 200 men. It is nice to see that there is a good mix at some of the conventions I go to. Right, last question from Steve. It might be rare these days, but how do you like to be taught or learn how to play a game? Watching a video, reading the rules beforehand, diving straight in. How do I like to be taught a game? Right, so the way that I like to be taught a game is using my demo style, which I use at conventions. I just want to play. I just want to write the first game off as a learning game, and I just want to play and start doing things. Depending on the game. If it's got 5 to 10 minutes of rules explanation beforehand, like Azul, that's fine. I want to be taught all of the rules beforehand, and then I can start playing. That's fine. If somebody was to teach me Agra, I would not want them to go into all of the details about every single space and how every single little thing works in the game before we move a piece. Because, excuse me, that would be 30 to 40 minutes of rules explanation before we start playing, and that doesn't work for me. So I want 5 to 10 minutes of rules explanation, then I want to start doing things. I don't care that my first game I'm going to make mistakes. I just want to do stuff and then tell me what happens. So yeah, watching a video, I fall asleep when I watch videos. Ironically enough, reading the rules beforehand, I like to, if I can. Right, what else have we got? Oh yes, female characters. Yeah. So Cormac Connolly has said some games have a missed opportunity to have art of female characters. Absolutely. Now, the perfect situation, and I'm going to talk about Robinson Crusoe again, is that every character sheet is two-sided with a male on one side and a female on the other side, and there are no differences at all between the characters. And a game that I've been working on, which is coming out next year, Legends Untold, does exactly the same thing. The character cards are two-sided. It's male on one side, female on the other side. If you don't do that, for whatever reason, either you can't afford the extra artwork or your other side of the character cards need to be the same backs or whatever, then have 50-50. You know, if you've got 4 characters, 2 of them should be female, 2 of them should be male. If you have 5 characters, go 3 and 2. It doesn't really matter which. What I believe is wrong is where you have all male characters, or you have some male characters and you have 1 female character. That's the worst case situation for me. And there was a game, and I won't mention it, but it was a game that I was involved a little bit in this year, where I saw the character cards and they were all male, and I pointed it out to them, and they said, "Yeah, sorry, it's too late. We've done all the artwork. It's all going to print." And I'm like, right, well, you're going to get some backlash for this, and you really should have included female characters in there. But yeah, we should be including female personalities in games. The interesting discussion, and we'll maybe leave this for another time, is where the game is realistic or historical. So I played Flamme Rouge recently, and I think Flamme Rouge is a fantastic game. Every cyclist in the game is male. And the rulebook is written in such a way that the player could be male or female, but when we refer to the cyclist, it's his, because all of the racers in the Flamme Rouge are male. That's how it is. It's a racing game of bicycle racing, and all the people taking part in it are male. I don't know anything about bicycle racing, but I've been told that's how it is. So you can't just have, well, you could put female characters in it, and then what you're doing is you're making your game more inclusive, but suddenly it's now a racing game that isn't the Flamme Rouge, because the Flamme Rouge doesn't have female racing. So yeah. Right. Would you consider being a guest at Emoticon? I'll be a guest anywhere, Steve. You just need to pay me £1,000, send it through to my PayPal. No, I don't know what that is, but yes, I'm more than happy to do a guest. Oh, all the other Pauls that are hello, Paul, and hello, Paul. This trader is amazing. Yeah, so Paul's talking about the trader in Agra. He says the trader is amazing, and it is amazing. What you can do with it is absolutely fantastic. But clearly it didn't work out for you. And what I'd like to see is, obviously we were all learning the game together, but if somebody plays the trader and uses it alongside another strategy, I want to really use it because it seems very, very powerful. Right, Ian, what would you like to achieve with gaming rules over the next few years? Few years is a long way off. What I'd like to achieve over the next 6 months, and this has been, it's probably my biggest, if I could fix one problem, this would be it. It's the number of views on my videos, which when you look at Gloomhaven and you think, what's he complaining about? 95,000 views. Yeah, that's brilliant, you know, because it's Gloomhaven and everybody's going to that and they're watching that video. My subscribers on YouTube is just over 10,000, and that seems really, really good. But there is a big difference between subscribers and people who regularly watch stuff. So when my content goes up, my podcasts on YouTube get about 500 views. So I've got 10,000 subscribers and 500 views on the podcast. So that means that most of those subscribers are not interested in watching the podcast, which is fine. That's okay. But then I do some rules videos and they get maybe 1,500 views, maybe 2,000 views. And I think, oh, okay, so if you're a subscriber to the channel, but you're not watching the podcasts, but you're not watching the YouTube, you're not watching the rules videos, but you're not watching the other videos, I'm not sure. Now, a lot of those subscribers that I got to my YouTube channel were from 3 years ago, and they probably clicked subscribe. They've probably not watched another video since. So for me, the thing that I would like to improve is more views and engagement on the videos that I put up. I've no idea how to do that. I've tried everything. I tried dressing up as a squirrel, thinking that might get some engagement. It might go viral, maybe. I mean, not really viral, but I would have hoped something like that there would have been a number of people on Twitter and social media sharing it and retweeting it and saying, oh, look at this, it's really funny. Because I see lots and lots of other content creators sharing each other's stuff, especially when it's really, really funny, or it's got a good opening scene or something about it. And I would have hoped with that one that because I did something funny, that it would have got a bit more, and it didn't. I think it got 1 retweet in the end, and it's had 2,000 views. So yeah, that's where I'd like it to go. In terms of what I'm going to be doing, because of the Patreon, I am going to be doing these once a month. I'm going to be doing the monthly video logs once a month, and I'm going to be doing more reviews. So I'm working a lot harder. I'm taking a lot more time away from the paid work to do more content like this. Apart from that, rulebook wise and rules video wise, that's probably just going to continue along the same lines as it has done for the last year or two. I don't see any changes to that. I'm very happy with the rules videos that I'm putting out now. I think the quality of them and the content of them is better than they were a year ago. I've become more comfortable with them, and I'm getting better at scripting them. So yeah, that's where I'm going to see that go. Paul, he'd like to see more challenging stereotypes. Warriors should be warrior built and not look like they are on the pull, either gender. Yeah, that's true. Right, Cormac, it's okay to be historical. I don't think you can just change history. But the best games find clever ways to point out how far we have come, or subtly note the historical imbalance. Yes, if you've got some good examples of that, then please let me know either here in the chat or again on the BGG Guild. And I'm going to go back to Robinson Crusoe again. Robinson Crusoe is not a historical game, but it's based on a certain time in history. And at that time in history, the ships probably were all men, I think. I don't know. I'm guessing. But I imagine that the ships back then that were sailing around the seas, the complement of the crew was probably all men or 99% men. So if that game was supposed to be realistic, then it wouldn't have any women in it, but it does. And I think it's good that it does. So, yes. So Chris enjoyed the video log. Well, I'm sure you did, Chris, because Chris actually won a copy of Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. So congratulations on that. Freedom. What you mean? Yeah, Paul Bryant has just said freedom. So that's the underground one where you're Freedom Underground Railroad something or other, American slaves, and you're trying to free the slaves and get them to the other side. So yeah, if that's that, I've heard that's a really good game. I think you played it here once. It has historical context, and from what Paul's saying, it does have a good representation of men and women in there. I've not played that, but as I say, I have heard good things about it. Right, let's just go back to see if there's any other questions. Yeah, that's probably. Oh, no, another one from Ben. Having revisited a number of Essen 2016 titles recently, what is your gut feeling about the longevity of the Essen 2017 titles that you've seen? Right, so let's go back to my two favourite games from last year's Essen were Great Western Trail and Feast for Odin. I think they were probably my top two games from last year. Do they still have legs now? Would I more than happily play either of those games right now? Yes, I would. What games have come out at Essen this year, which I think this time next year I'm still going to want to play? It's hard to say, because there are some games like Feast for Odin, which, I'd played it 10, 12 times, and then I got it out again just before Essen of this year to say, right, am I still enjoying this, or am I now done with it? And it turns out that I still enjoy playing it, and I will still enjoy playing it. I think it's a fantastic game. It needs some changes for the occupation cards, but that's another story. And Great Western Trail, I think that's a fantastic game. I'm not sure yet of the games that are out this year. I might play Flamme Rouge 10 times, and then I might be done with it. I might be like, right, well, this was fantastic the first 10 times. But actually, now that I've played it this many times, I'm done with it. It might be, I don't know. Or it might be that it's still really good. Am I still going to enjoy Agra after 10 games? I don't know. A game like Agra is a tricky one because it's quite a long, complex game. And I've got lots of long, complex games. And every time I'm playing Agra, I'm not playing Lisboa or I'm not playing Vinhos. There's so many other games that I want to be playing as well. Right, so David said he went out of his way a few weeks ago to listen to the Longview episode where I was the guest. Oh yeah, about the Sherlock Holmes game. Yeah, I was the guest. I basically took over the show and talked for an hour about Sherlock Holmes game. But whenever I'm talking about something that I'm passionate about, then yeah, I will just go on and on and on about it. And Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective is a game that I'm very passionate about. and I did talk about it for quite a long time. But it's interesting because, you know, I've been playing that game for 34 years, and I've played it with every gaming group that I've ever been a member of. So, yeah. So David said he's been interested to try it out, but the mistakes were putting me off getting the game. Yes, the new version from Space Cowboys. There's one typo in one of the cases. I'm sorry. Somebody's name's spelt slightly wrong. It's fairly obvious. It's not game breaking, but apart from that, it's perfect. Steve Manser says Freedom Underground Railroad is his favourite game he's played in the last year or so. Interesting. Favourite game. It's a life enriching experience. So, Steve, come over, bring it round, teach me how to play, and we will play it. David, go back to Sherlock Holmes. How can you be sure you've got the correct version? If it's got Space Cowboys on it, and it's the new one from Space Cowboys, then it's fine. The previous editions from Istari, there was about 5 or 6 different versions. You've got to check the printed date on the back. I believe the one that's dated 2016-2 is the most correct one, but I think it still has lots of typos in it, but at least it's corrected. But even the London directory is still wrong, I believe, in the latest Istari one. So I would just get the new one and be done with that one. Right, anyway, it is 7:37. I was going to make this an hour. It's been a little longer than an hour, and the first 10 minutes of this is me with all of the technical problems that I had, which none of you saw, but it was me spending 10 minutes talking to my screen, trying to work out what was going on, trying various things, getting very, very confused, getting slightly anxious and stressed because nobody was watching. I was transmitting, and the chat wasn't working. And then it turns out that I'd set the video to private so that nobody could watch it. But of course, it was working for me because I was logged into YouTube as myself. So for me, I could see myself going out, but nobody else could see it. So thank you very much to everybody who was pointing out in the Facebook chat that they weren't able to see anything. Thank you very much for everybody who's joined in on the chat. I had no idea how many people were going to turn up. There's been some really good questions. I will look at doing another one of these at some point in January. I don't know when. I need to find a time in my schedule. I'm off tonight to probably play another solo game of Nussfjord, or Knutsford, as I'm now going to be calling it, because I got 43 points with the mackerel. So I'm going to try that again. Then I'm going to be editing podcast 55 because I've got all the audio files. And then an early night because I've got a games day tomorrow. So yes, thank you very much for watching. Take care, everybody, and I'll see you next time. Now I'm going to find where the button is to stop broadcasting, which is there. See you later.